this on.
I'm on my training.
You guys, I'm using four corners because that's what I'm most familiar with, but everything applies the same. I'm just looking for an A-plan work order, and I'm sure that's what some of you are doing as well. Let's see. There's probably nothing new in here. Let me flip this around. Well, that didn't help. There we go. I want to plan one of these newer ones. I don't want PM. I'm just going to pick this one. Alright, so you're the planner or the engineer, and you have this A-plan work order. So what I always like to do is the first thing this one does have a budget amount on it, so we're going to talk about that. This one has a good date, 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. Either one will work. It depends on how the time zone is set on your people record, how this comes in. Because this probably was written as 7, but it's showing up as 6. It could be based on what my time zone is in the training database. I'm not really sure. So I have this A-plan work order. It is for November the 9th, which is 4 weeks from now, I think. And I need to plan this. It's corrective maintenance. So what am I going to do next? Let's talk about the difference between a work plan and a job plan. The work plan is what is on this work order. That is a work plan. Now, the work plan can also become a job plan, or you can take a job plan that's already created and you can add it to the work order. But the work plan itself is what's on the work order. So I could go, for example, I could go and find a job plan. And it's not going to be the job plan for this. It's just, I'm going to find a job plan. And as you progress, you're going to find, you have ways of doing things. You're going to write things in a certain way. And I only want one that is active. And this is not going to be the job plan for this particular work order, but I'm going to use it just as an example. So I'm going to return with value. Now I've found a job plan. I'm going to return with value. Now, that job plan that I just picked, you see it right here, will fill out your plans tab. We got one task for 8 hours. The crew work group fills in, and your labor fills in. This is set for 2 men, 5 hours. Now, this is what I want you to understand about using a job plan on a work order. If the job plan is generic, let's just say, for example, we pick this job plan, but we need something different. For example, say we want this to be 2 men, 8 hours instead of 5. See, somebody changed. The duration up here is 8, but this doesn't match. So this job plan actually needs to be revised. But what we can do is we can revise it on this work order so we can use it correctly. And then later on, the planner needs to go back and fix the job plan because it is incorrect right now. The task duration must match the labor. So I'm going to change this to an 8, and I'm going to save it. There are several things that have to be done on the work order. It has to have a task. That's what actually gets scheduled. It has to have a crew work group. Although it does not say this is mandatory, there's no red asterisk beside it, it is absolutely mandatory. If this work order does not have a crew work group, it's never going anywhere because the task is what it's looking for. And for those of you that use OIS, it will never show up. Your area coordinator or your supervisor who is working in OIS is never going to see this work order. So make sure it has a good crew work group, and the crew work group and the craft must match. There must be a task number in front of the craft, because this is what tells the system, okay, I want craft MFC ME4C to work on task 10. Without, again, if this task number right here is missing, again, no one will see it because it's not related. The system says, okay, I have a task, but I don't know who's doing it, because the craft is the key for the labor. The crew work group is the key for the task itself. Now, some things that we are not going to cover today, which was the desktop requisition and the Ariba punch-out. You can put your materials, your services, any of those things on this work order as you plan it. Now, this job plan that I brought over does not have any materials on it, but the planner could then add the materials after he does the job plan. But there's also, for me, I'm just going to say this, and I am not going to, oh, I did say that. I'm not going to move this work order any farther forward. I'm going to go back to the list, and I'm going to pick another work order. And this time, rather than put a job plan on it, I'm going to create the job plan. Now, there are two schools of thought here. Many people think if you have a generic job plan out there that just says, this crew work group, this craft, 2 men, 8 hours. Just put that on here and then you make the changes. My personal opinion is those generic job plans like that, oftentimes the changes that need to be made do not get made correctly. So it's not executable. It can't be scheduled, so therefore it can't be executed. But, as I said, there are many people who feel like you should use a generic job plan if you have one and then make the changes. I'm not a fan of that because I've seen it go wrong too many times where the changes don't get made correctly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plan my work order. This is the work plan on the work order. So what is my job here? Now, you can either copy this, or if you know more, you could add to this summary here. You know, this one says install TrailX liner, so okay, we're going to install TrailX. So I'm going to, you must have a good duration. I'm going to say it's 8 hours. The crew work group has come over from the header, because the work order itself is written to MFC4C. It's automatically going to populate this. And I'm going to show you something in just a minute that is very important about adding the tasks. Alright, so I have one task, 8 hours. So now I need to put in a new row. And so for task 10, I want that same crew work group. And let me do it this way. For those of you who may not know, you can also go to select value if you don't know what the crew work group is. Although, I'm sorry, the craft code. Although this is a very lengthy list. Let me just back up. So see, I've got 59 choices. So for me, it's easier just to know what it is, and as you plan, you're going to know what your craft codes are for your crew work groups. Alright, so I'm going to say this is 2 men. But I'm going to need an electrician. So I'm going to hit new row again. The system automatically says this is task 20. You can change these task numbers. I like to leave them 10, 20, because if I find out something, say for example I find out that I need a crane operator, and I'll show you that in just a minute, I could use task 15 in between those two. So I'm going to paste that same information here, but At the beginning, I'm going to say that I need an electrician. Alright, so, and I'm only going to need him for 2 hours. Here's something important. Because the header work order is written to this crew work group, when you add tasks, it's automatically going to put that same crew work group on here. However, that is not the correct crew work group because those are mechanics, not electricians. So you must change this crew work group because now I want an electrician. And I want the electrician for the plant, so I'm going to select that. And it's very important that you pay attention to that because it's very easy to miss that. It happens a lot. If you miss it a few times, you know, it's not a big deal because it happens. Someone's going to catch it eventually as it goes through the system. But you must change this crew work group when you add a craft other than the one that has the header work order. So, okay, so now we've got an electrician on here for 2 hours. So we need to now add another task, and this one will be task 20, but we need the craft for the electrician. Now I know what it is. So now, once you put that in, then the hours from above. Remember, the hours that you put on the task, when you add labor, it's always going to add the hours down here at the bottom. If you make changes at the top after you have added the labor, you're going to need to come back down here and change it because it does not change it for you. It only puts it in the first time. If you make a change to the task duration up here, please make sure you change it down here in the labor because it will not automatically do it. Alright, so say now, okay, oops, I'm going to need a crane operator for this job. So I'm going to add a new row. Now, it made it task 30, but it doesn't have to be task 30. I like my stuff to be in order. So I'm going to change this number to 15 because I want the crane operator to be associated with the mechanics. That's just how I see it in my head. So, again, that is not the correct crew work group, at least at Four Corners, because we have a separate crane operator crew at the plant. So now, that's going to be the crane operator. Let me put this in. Then we're going to say and I'm going to need him for all 8 hours. So I'm going to add another row, and this would be for task 15. And again, I happen to know what it is, so I'm just going to type it in. But again, you can also look it up with the select value right here. Alright, and I only need one crane operator, and it is here for 8 hours. Now, something that will help this be scheduled. I know I'm going through a lot of stuff, and we're going to go through it many times. So now that we have all our tasks, I'm going to save this. But how do we want this to happen? That's where the predecessors come in. Predecessor means before. So I'll tell you, the screen in the training environment is different than the screen in production. Because in production, let me see if they changed it up here. Yes, they have, I'm sorry. So you can see, once we fill in these predecessors and the relationship and any lag hours between them, they're all going to show here. But to get that to fill in, you see I'm on the crane task. That is the second task in my order. So down here, right-hand side, you'll see predecessors. So what you do is you open this up, and you're not going to see the task that you have clicked on because you can't relate it to itself. So I want task 15, which is the crane operator, I want it to start at the same time that the mechanics start. So you see it defaults to FS, which is finish to start. That is not what we want to do here. Finish to start means as soon as task 10 finishes, 15 starts. Well, we don't want them to. We don't want the crane operator to show up after the mechanics are done. We want the crane operator to be there when the mechanics are doing the work. So we want it to be a start to start. In other words, they start at the same time. You can also use finish to finish, which I've never used, and I typically don't use start to finish. Start to finish is basically this one starts and the other one finishes, which to me is the same thing as finish to start. So I want the crane operator to show up at the same time that the mechanics do. So I'm going to make it a start to start. And you see, here's that relationship I just added. Now, but I also have to do that same thing with the electricians. And for the sake of this discussion, I'm going to do that a little bit differently. I'm going to say that I want the electricians to start, to be a finish to start, but I want them to show up 2 hours after. So in other words, the mechanics and the crane operator would be showing up at 7. I don't want the electrician to show up till 2. I'm sorry, till 9. So I put 2 hours lag here. So after I save this, all my relationships didn't show up. Let me see if I did something wrong. I don't think I did, but I don't have a save icon. I'm a little confused about what's going on here. It's not accepting what I'm giving it. I have no explanation for what's going on. This should have, it appears to not. Oh, okay, I didn't check it. That's the problem. Did you see what I missed? I didn't check this. I put the relationship here, but I didn't check the box. It had no way to know what I was asking. And now you can see, so task 10, for this example, is going to start at 7. The crane operator, which is task 15, is going to start at the same time. We've got a start-to-start relationship right here. It's going to start at the same time as task 10. The electricians are going to be a finish to start. So in other words, when, oh, that wasn't right. Yeah, we're going to have to redo this one because I don't want it to start after they're over. So yes, the predecessor is 10, but I want it to be a start to start. Did you see what my error was there? Because I said it was a finish to start, it was going to start the electricians at 9 a.m. the next day because I made it a finish to start. So it needs to be a start to start. So starting at the same time, but 2 hours later. Now it is correct. Alright, so when the scheduler got this, well, what happened is they would click a button in the schedule and it would line this up at 7, 7, and 9. 7 for this one, 7 for this one, and 9 a.m. for this one. And each task has its own crew work group and has its associated craft. Now, what I have just done is the work plan. Now, what you can do, if you knew that this was something that you were going to do repetitively, this exact same thing, to me, that is what the job plan is. The job plan, I can go out there and find a job plan. I'm going to be doing the exact same thing. I'm going to have these exact same 3 crew work groups. I'm going to lay it out the same way. So, you can, and I'm going to have to find it, right here under More Actions, create job plan from work plan. So now you can give it a job plan number. You can give it a number that you will remember. Say, for example, this is 4C 6 flume discharge. Of course, you don't have that many letters, but you need to make it something that you will remember. You can either I'll say, for example, this is 4C flume. Or I can just tell it to auto number, and it's just going to give it a number. So you would have to go out and search for it unless you write the number down, you got a pen on your bulletin board or whatever you guys do. Because the number, when you auto number, it's not a number that you're going to be able to remember because you didn't name it that. So you can do either one. For this example, I'm just going to auto number it. So now this job plan is 142834. So I'm going to go and look at the job plans. Now, this is a draft. So, in order to be able to use it in the future, you have to change the status. So, I'll change the status and say I want this to be an active job plan. So now, I or anyone can go out and find this job plan and use it. Any questions about that so far? I know that was a lot.
Yes, I didn't get to the job plans.
Okay, so I go here and I go planning job plans. Or are you asking how I created the job plan from the work plan?
How do you get to the library job plan? So you're in the planning.
Yes.
And so we got to go to list view, or we got to be list view. Let's see. Okay, I see job plans here. Okay, and then if we find one, then we just hit return with value, correct?
Yes, from the work order. Say you're on you have the work order open, and you click on the job plan. All right, so think of it this way. All right, so I'm just going to pull up any work order. So from the work order, when you have the work order open, you could go right here to job plan, select value, or go to job plans, either one. I prefer select value. Well, no, that's not true. I don't prefer that. Not here. Go to job plans. So if you know the number, you can do it that way, or you can look. You can say, I want a job plan that is for MSC 4C. And I want the status to be active. And it's going to find me all the active job plans. And then I just pick one, and I say, this is okay, yes, this is the one I want. I usually take a look at it, make sure, the stuff matches, 8 and 8. And then once you've found it, you just return with value.
Yes.
And
Okay.
what it does, then it just attaches that job plan to your work order. And it will fill, then it fills in everything here.
Okay.
Alright, so we've looked at the work order itself, an A-plan work order, adding a job plan, or creating a work plan. We did two different things. You can either find a job plan if you have a job plan that's applicable to what you're doing, or you just plan the work order. You find an A-plan work order. I'm not going to say that. You just find an A-plan work order, and then you plan it. You just add a new row, put the number of tasks that you need, make sure you have the correct crew work group, and then put the correct labor to match. And then you also need to put those predecessors in. You only need a predecessor if you have more than one task. Because if you have just one, there's nothing else that's going to be attached to it. That's the only crew work group that's going to work on it. Typically, most work orders that I see, it's probably about 50-50. There are a lot of work orders that maybe you only need a mechanic, or you only need an electrician. But some of the bigger jobs, you're probably going to need a mechanic and a crane operator and an electrician. I mean, you may need, someone to put scaffolding up. And we can talk about that as well. I mean, it's basically just adding all the people, all the resources that you need to get the job done. So, what I'm going to ask you guys to do is I want each of you to find a work order. Find an A-plan work order, whether it is on your start center or whether you go to work order tracking and find it. Those of you who don't have one on your start center, you can just go to work orders. Where the heck is work order tracking at? Work orders, work order tracking oil. And you can find it. You can search for a work order for your crew work group that's in an A-plan status. If you do not have an A-plan work order on your start center, you can search for it like this. And it will give you all the A-plan work orders for whatever crew work group, either you plan for or you might be the owner of some of those work orders. I know a couple of you did not have anything show up on your start center. So you can always just go and find a work order. We're in the training database. You're not going to hurt anything. And again, please make sure you are in the training database before you do anything else. It should say MAX-QAS01 up here in the link. I think you all are because I'm seeing your service requests. So I think everyone probably is in. So what I would like you to do, I want each of you to plan a work order. First, I want you to plan it on the work order without a job plan. And then we're going to do another one where you're going to go out and search for a job plan and bring it back to the work order. But the first one you're going to do the planning on the plans tab of the work order. Any questions? And I'm going to ask you guys to write your numbers down because there's a lot of work orders in here and it might be hard for me to find them because we're going to go in and we're going to actually look at each one. So, any questions about that? Let me go over here and see if anybody's talking in the chat box. Okay, so you guys are great, by the way, about staying on mute unless you have a question. I really appreciate that. It really cuts down on the noise. All right, everybody write a work order, and we're going to take 15 minutes. Mike had added materials on here, and it's anything above 0 is going to be above the budget amount because there's no budget amount on this work order. So what would happen is when he routed it, if it had materials on it or a service, what would happen is it's going to go back to the area coordinator because any dollar amount is going to be above this budget amount. So then the area coordinator would look at it and then they would then they would be approving it as they were sending it on through workflow. And once they did that, then if we didn't have the materials, it's going to go to waiting material. If it's something, for example, that's coming out of the warehouse that we have, then it's going to go on through the statuses once the area coordinator approves it. But remember, labor does not count right now, so labor, there's still no dollars above the budget amount. All right, someone else have one? I know you guys are at work orders. Or planned work orders. Come on. Somebody step up.
265-475-313.
All right, let's see what we got here.
Sit.
Now, this work order is a whopper. I don't really understand. Could you not find an A-plan work order?
Best friend.
You know what? My other one, I used the same one I did before. I mean,
Okay. Yeah, I really wanted you guys to use an A-plan work order, but so did.
I just changed it.
Well, it's the same basic premise, but because this work order is a whopper, it actually should have been screened by the screener and been an A-plan. I'm not sure what happened. Let's see what. See what. See what.
He's like, how did you get even though
There it is. View order history. So did you use a quick reporting work order?
Yeah, what I put in earlier.
Okay.
Actually, when that said field complete, I've never seen that status before. And normally, if it's in complete status, you can't change it to anything else. But I was able to change it.
Okay, and here's why. Because you used a quick reporting work order. Remember earlier when I showed you when you do a quick report, it's automatically a wrapper?
Right?
But there's something wrong in the training database. So once you save a quick report, it automatically changes it to field complete. And field complete is what the technicians would do. Say they're using a mobile app, and they would change it to field complete. And then that is not an actual complete status.
Oh, okay.
The supervisor would actually change it to complete. So what you did was you just used your quick reporting work order instead. And so this went through a weird process because it was a quick reporting work order and not a work order that was written either from a service request or a regular work order. But your plan looks fine.
So that brings up a question. Are we going to transition to field technicians completing their own work orders?
That is in the future.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, because we don't have mobile at all the sites yet. They do on the potash sites, but I can't remember which site it is in Florida that has the mobile app. Four Corners does not. Yeah, that is the thing of the future, but we don't have mobile for everybody, so the only way the technicians would be able to do it is actually to do it on, on a desktop, or on a laptop. But that will be what we will be moving towards. That's why that status is there. But the quick reports are the ones that have the issue. They're automatically changing to field complete when they're not supposed to. I've already reported it, but apparently nothing's been done about it yet. But your plan looks fine. All right. All right, who's next?
265475307.
Excuse me, are you choking?
So you're doing an inspection, and you need electricians as well. So let's see. Okay, there's no crew work group here. Let's just take a look at the header. Alright, this is a Riverview crew work group. Are you at Riverview?
I'm at South Paris, but I was supposed to be using Bartow stuff. I must let that slip by.
Okay, so
You suck.
we need a crew work group for
Stop. That's why I never did.
a preventive maintenance inspection.
He's joking.
I'm not really sure which one it would be.
You know what you want. You probably want your bed.
I'm gonna pick this inspection crew.
Move.
Let me take a look. What kind of? Let's see.
You.
What is this craft code? Okay, that's central maintenance. Okay. So you've got central maintenance doing the first task. So I don't know how I know how it works at Four Corners because central maintenance is not an embedded crew. You would have the crew work group for the crew where the work is being done, and then the craft code would be the central maintenance crew. So then on the second task, you do have a crew work group on it. CBRES. And does this, I don't think this is the right craft code. I think we're probably going to have to take that line out. This, I don't think this craft code, I'm not familiar with the craft codes at Bartow, but it looks like this doesn't match. It looks like the craft code doesn't match this crew work group.
Hurry up and load my freaking
Let's see what this is.
password. Oh, I know.
E&I technicians. And this is E&I technician dry products. I'm not sure if those go together or not, to be honest. Maybe it does. It's kind of hard to tell. I'm used to seeing the numbers from the crew work group, for example, being in the craft code. But these may go together. I can't really say for certain. But your plan looks fine. You've got a start-to-start relationship in here, so 10 and 1 are going to start at the same time. And because this is a contractor, there wouldn't be any rate showing here. So this looks fine. You've got your task numbers in front of your crafts, so it looks good. Okay, who's next?
265388
Okay, one thing, your crane operator assist doesn't have any hours here.
Ah, okay.
So, but you did put, so you keyed in the hours down here. So if you had put this, if you had put the 8 here, it would have put it below, but I see that you typed it in, which you can do that. Alright, so I think this crew work group, do you have a separate crew work group for a crane operator? Or are they? Okay, so this probably needs to be changed.
I just saw that as well too. That is CLU C011.
No, is that the crew work group or the craft code?
Craft code.
Yeah, we need the crew work group.
But as far as a crane operator, I don't know what the crew work group is. Maybe CLU11.
So it's in with, so it's in the same crew work group as the mechanic. But it has a different craft code, is that correct?
So the craft code is for the crane operator is CLU C011.
Right?
Crew is CLU11. That's for the crane.
Okay, we got that. Okay. Alright, so now you don't have a predecessor here. So the system would not know that you want this to start at the same time. So we want to open up the crane operator. We want to go to the predecessor tab and we want to check 10 and we want them to start at the same time. You can either select it or you can type it in. I usually just type it in, but so now the crane operator is related to task 10 so they can start at the same time.
Okay, start to start.
Yes. Everything else looks good. You've got your tasks in front of your crafts. You got your hours are down here. Yep, looks good. All right, who's next?
So all the changes you just made, if I restart, if I get out of here, all the changes will go to mine because it's not showing up right now.
Yes, yes, it will because I was in it. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll have to go out and back in. Okay, who's next?
This is George. I got 265475 but I'm having trouble putting the craft work group in. And what's the difference between the crew work group and the craft group?
The craft is the code. Say it's a mechanic or it's a crane operator, or it's a welder, or it's whatever. So, ooh, you got a big one here. All right, so let's take a look. All right, so we have an electrician. Their crew work group is CLU07. Is that correct? Does that sound right?
Wait, yeah, where you see that at? Oh, down here. I see. Okay.
Because that must be what's on the header of the work order. So now we have a mechanic, CLU02. I think that sounds right.
Correct.
And then we're going to have them align it. That's still CLU02. Then the electricians are going to rewire it. Okay, and that's that good crew work group. All right, before we talk about the predecessors, okay, you don't have any labor here.
No, I guess I can't put that in.
It won't let you put a new row here?
Thought I put a new in there, but I couldn't get a craft crew to come up.
All right, let's see what we got. All right, so the first one was 07. See, it's right here, CLUEI07. 1 man, 2 hours. Then we need a new row. I think the next one was mechanics, right?
Yes.
Okay, and they were. That was 02. Let's see them.
I should do 01.
That's not the same as the crew work group, though. The crew work group you have on it is 02.
Okay.
So you want the crew work group and the craft code to be for the same group of people. So maybe it's on the next page. There it is right there. CLUME02. Alright, then we have task 30. And that was the mechanics again, correct?
Yes.
And we need one more. Okay, so now we have all our labor here. And what we need to do is we need to relate these. Okay, so you have 2, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we're going to open up task 20. So do the mechanics come in after the electricians, or do they start at the same time?
After.
Okay, so we want this to follow task 10. Be a finish to start. As soon as 10 finishes, 20 will start. And notice you never see task 20 because that's the one we have open. You can't relate it to itself. So then task 30. So task 30 would follow 20. As soon as 20 is done. Okay, it's a finish to start. And
Hey,
then
sir.
task. Uh-huh.
I don't know about anybody else, but can you slow down just a little bit because there seems to be a
Absolutely.
lag between what you're saying and what we're seeing.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, we're having a hard time. I'm having a hard time following your mouse because there may be a lag. So maybe if you can slow down or move your mouse so you can see where your mouse goes.
Okay. I can certainly try that. Okay, so you see I'm opening up task 40. And we're going to come down here to the predecessor. Sorry, I missed it. We're going to open up the predecessor. Okay, so now we have task 40 open. So we're going to click task 30 because 40 is going to follow 30. It's going to be a finish to start. As soon as the mechanics align the motor, then the electrician's going to come back in. So now I'm going to save that. I don't know why the task didn't change. Oh, I think we'll have to write it. Okay. So you see his relationships here in this predecessor column. 20 is following 10, 30 is following 20, and 40 is following 30. And they're all a finish to start. You can see the relationship in this relationship type column. I'm glad you did one that had more than 2 tasks on it. Show everyone how you relate everything together. All right, is everybody good? You see, we've got all his crafts on here. All the crafts match the crew work groups, and all the predecessors are here.
Where do you see the craft match the crew work group? Where do you see that at?
Okay, so I've got task 10 open right now. Here's its crew work group right here, CLU07. If you look down here in the labor, task 10, he has the craft code now that matches that crew work group. 07. It's electricians. So that's what the 4th and 5th character in here tells us this is an electrician. And then 07 matches the crew work group.
So the crew type would be CLU07 and the craft is CLUEI07?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And see, he has mechanics here on task 20 and 30. So you see this has an ME here in the middle. And 02, because that's a different crew work group. That's a crew work group CLU 02 on task 20. So everything's matching. Typically, the last two characters on the craft code are going to be the last two characters of the crew work group. The fourth and fifth characters typically designate what kind of craft it is. Is it mechanics? Is it electricians? Is it a crane operator? That kind of thing. So this looks good. All right. Who else? Okay, guys, I know you got some more work orders out there. We've only done maybe 5.
You can do mine. 265-180-475.
Okay, so task twin is to reinstall B-train reactor, and it is CLFA3. We have a crane operator, CLFOC, and I'm assuming that is correct, because I'm not really very familiar with them.
Yeah, that's how we code them there.
Alright, so I'm pretty sure this craft code is correct. So the crane operator, that looks like it probably matches. Everybody, each site kind of does things a little bit differently, so sometimes it's a little hard to tell, but I think this is correct. It ends in S3. See, I'm not sure about this one, Jacob.
That's what we do. I'm 100% sure.
Okay. Alright, so we don't have any relationships on here.
So if they're the same, like front to back, they're working together, do we need a relationship?
Yes.
Okay.
You have to have a relationship if there's more than one task.
Okay.
Because see, when someone gets ready to schedule it, they don't know what you want. And so if you relate the task, let's open up task 20. We're going to go to the predecessor. And so you're saying you want 20 to start with 10. The mechanics and the crane operator at the same time, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So that would be a start to start. And now you can see the 20 is the 10 is the predecessor of 20, and you're going to start them at the same time. This is an improvement because a few months ago you couldn't see any of this predecessor, relationship type, or lag hours here in the summary. You had to actually look at each one to see them. So this is actually an improvement from what we had when we first opened or updated to 7.6. Okay, so I see yours is in waiting scheduled status. Let's see something here. Where's my view work history? Alright, so it was a Whopper, and then looks like probably this is probably the area coordinator or production coordinator. Progressed it to A plan, and then Jacob changed it to waiting scheduled. So here's my question. Did you change status or did you route it?
I routed it.
Okay.
It was just out of habit, honestly. I didn't mean to.
No, that's okay. I mean, that is the order that it happens in. I just wasn't expecting you guys. Honestly, I didn't know if everybody even knew that because I'm not really familiar with all of you and how long you've been doing this or, you know, how much experience you might have. All right, good job. All right, who's next?
I've got one 265-475-308.
Okay, Lewis, let's see what you've got. Alright, 10 hours. So question, do your crews work 10-hour days? Or are they on a 10-hour shift?
Yes.
Okay. Alright, so you've got S4, and you've got S4 as the craft code. I'm really happy to see that all of you are remembering to put your task number in front of it. You'd be amazed how much that helps. Because then it's going to show up for the people who need to see the work order. So, again, because we don't have materials or services on here, then this work order can be routed. What some of you have already done. It's in A-plan status right now. This is a whopper because he just added it. But you could also just route it. And it immediately goes to waiting scheduled. Because there's no parts on it, it immediately goes to waiting scheduled. And then whenever the header changes, the task changes as well. Okay, who's next?
So just a quick question.
Uh-huh.
If you route it and you have parts and stuff like that on it, what does it go to? Waiting approval?
No. It depends. Let's just go back. Let me go back to that work order. Alright, so say for example, if you have parts on this work order, what's going to happen is, depending on, remember the budget amount. This one has a 0 budget amount. So it is going to, when you route it, it's going to go back to the area coordinator. It's going to show up in their box on the front page. Let me show you. So the coordinator screen looks a little bit different. So they're going to see, they're either going to see they have an inbox assignment, or they might just have open work orders down here. Because if it goes over that budget amount, they have to see it again. So then what happens is, if they approve it, then they're routing it. And if it's going to, if it has parts on it that we do not have, then it's going to go to waiting material. It all depends on the budget amount. If the if the area coordinator did put a budget amount on it, say for example, oh shoot, somebody give me a work order number again. It might be one we've already done.
Well, I would give you mine again, but it didn't have a budget amount.
Well, that's okay. For my purposes, it doesn't matter.
Okay, 265 388 167.
So, if, when the area coordinator screened the service request or work order, they screened both. Alright, say the area coordinator had put $1,000 on here, but he has parts on here for $2,000. It's going to go back to them. A lot of the area coordinators like to leave it at 0, so the stuff comes back for them to see. Others who are more experienced, for example, Casey Ferris at Four Corners is an area coordinator for the washer, but she was a materials coordinator before. So she has some idea of how much parts cost, and if she knows what parts this job needs, for example, if the work order had said, no, I'm going to replace the impeller, she might put a budget amount on here for the impeller and possibly a few other parts, because typically when you replace the impeller, you might replace the shaft sleeve, you might need a few other things. So she may put a budget amount on it, and some area coordinators do. So it's just all going to depend on how much money you spend, and again, labor doesn't count. So parts and services only would then be subject to review of the budget amount. And the area coordinators are the owners of it, so it's always going to go back to them if it's above the budget amount. If it's above their approval level, say he spent, $35,000, then it's going to go, the area coordinator would see it, but someone above them would have to approve it because I think their level is 25,000. So it's all about financial workflow. That's what 7.6 is. All our work orders go through work order financial approval before they can get to a waiting scheduled status for, for the supervisors or the area coordinators to then pick those jobs, to go on the schedule. It's all about controlling the money.
Thank you.
All right. Does anybody else have a work order? Did I lose part of my audience? Let me just go look. Yeah, I got a whole bunch of people on here. I got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There are 12 of you who are still here. I don't know what happened to the rest of you. I had a whole group of people that didn't show up. There's more people that didn't show up than did, actually. So, does anybody else have a work order before we move on to our next step? Okay, guys, participation is crucial. That's how I know that you're getting what we're doing.
Hey, Cheryl, I don't want to jump to the next step, but I know you're headed out to the routing thing and then beyond. But what happens if you try to route one and you get this process while F master is active on this record, but there are no assignments for you?
Do you have one that says that?
Yes, when I tried to route it. I've seen this code come up before.
Okay, give me the work order number. Let's all look at it.
265-475-313. And I'll let you try to route it and see what happens.
Okay, I can probably tell you what's wrong.
I figured you could. There's an error somewhere. I just don't know where it's at.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go look at the asset because I think that's what the problem is. All right, and we need to see. Well, where's what I'm looking for? Oh, asset users and custodians. Okay, it does have a primary user. That's what I thought was wrong. Because every asset has to have a primary user. But there is someone on this work order. Okay. So let's return and let's see what happens when I try to route it. What status is it in right now? 8 plan. There are no assignments for you. Okay, let's just see. There's no budget amount. And there's no... Alright, so here's the other thing that you can do when it won't route. Now, I don't really understand why this one won't route because everything looks fine on it. You can also... You can change the status. Let's see what's available. Let's see, you can change this to waiting schedule.
See, it allowed you to do that. It wouldn't allow me to do that.
It didn't allow you to do that?
No, it didn't give me those different possibilities. I only had plan, in plan, planned, let me see, something else. I've done this before. Yeah, it only gives me hold, in plan, waiting approval, and MOC, waiting for MOC.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me look at something. I think I know what's wrong. Where's my work order history at? Oh, because this was the quick reporting work order, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's why.
Okay.
I forgot about that. We had that discussion earlier. I'm sorry, I forgot that. Because it started out as something that was already approved.
Oh, okay.
That's why it's saying there is no workflow. Because it actually already had an approval. Because the quick reporting work orders don't go through the same process that regular work orders do.
Right. And I probably would very, very seldomly use that process.
Right.
So,
No, that's what it was.
okay.
Okay, so now we'll do something.
Cheryl,
Uh-huh.
I'm still a little fuzzy on this predecessors and finish to start and start to finish. I want to make sure I got an understanding of that. Can you pull up my work order? It is, it's 2654 75299.
When you open up the task, then when you scroll down, you're going to see predecessors. So we have associated task 10 with it. Remember, we check the box, and then we say what the relationship is. And these are your choices. You can say finish to finish. In other words, I want both these jobs to finish at the same time. Say I had a 6-hour job and an 8-hour job, but I wanted them both to finish at 3 o'clock. So I would pick finish to finish. Finish to start says when task 10 finishes, task 20 can start. And then start to finish is I start this job when I finish this other job, which I don't like this. I recommend people never use this start to finish. And then you've got start to start, which says I want both these tasks to start at exactly the same time. But for our purposes, this one was a finish to start. And that was task 20. And remember, whichever task you have opened, you will not see here because you cannot relate it to itself. So then we're going to open up task 30. We're going to look at the predecessor for it. So we have selected task 20. We want 30 to follow 20. It's going to be a finish to start like the others are. When task 20 finishes, then task 30 starts. And then the same thing with task 40. We'll look at its predecessor. So 40 is going to follow 30. It's going to be a finish to start as well. So if we look up here at the summary, everything is lined up. So 20 follows 10, 30 follows 20, and 40 follows 30. Because they're all a finish to start, so when 10 finishes, 20 starts. When 30 finishes, when 20 finishes, 30 starts. When 30 finishes, 40 starts. So it would be, for example, 7, 9, 10, 11 for the hours. Any questions about that? Let's don't move on unless we're sure.
That's quite okay. If it was start, it was say line 20 was start to start. In the predecessor column, there would be nothing in there.
No, there would still be you would still have to put a predecessor even if they start at the same time. Say you wanted the mechanics to align the motor, to remove the motor and align the motor at the same time, which wouldn't happen, but let's just use that example. So say we wanted those two to start together. So we would say we want task 30 and 20 to start at the same time. So we would pick start to start. Even if they start at the same time, you still have to put the predecessor there because the system doesn't know that. All it sees is 4 tasks, and it needs to know what you want to do with it.
Okay.
Anything with more than one task has to have the predecessor. What we called logic in the last version of Maximo we had. And it's the same. I still call it logic. This is the logic. Logically, the predecessors tell me this, the relationship type tells me this. So logically, that's how the work order is laid out. You know, there's some really complicated work orders I've seen that might have, 10 or 15 tasks on them because they're going to be sequential days, for example. So before we move on, let's talk about that. Let me go find a work order. Because what you have to keep in mind is, I'll probably never be able to find one to show this example, but I'm going to try. I know that Mike will have this because he will have, there will be days that the line crew, they might work on the same job all week long. They might have 5 tasks. I probably shouldn't have done that. I probably should have done this. Alright, so say for example, I'm going to plan this work order. I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to put 5 tasks on this work order. And I'm going to make each of them 8 hours. I'll just maybe do 2 or 3 just for this example. So I don't hold this up too much. Alright, so I'm not going to put any labor on this. I just want to show you about the relationship. Alright, so we have 3 tasks. They're 8 hours each. I'm going to do task 10 on Monday, but I don't want to do task 20 until Wednesday. So, here's where lag comes in. Alright, so I want 20 to follow 10. And I want it to be a finish to start, but I don't want it to start till Wednesday. So I have to put lag hours in here to get to Wednesday. And because the shift is 8 hours, so then we have 8 hours lag between 10 and 20. And I don't want task 30 to start until Friday. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say I want 30 to follow 20. I want it to be a finish to start, but I need 8 hours lag between them. So what happens is, the system looks at this. When the person schedules this work order, they're going to click on this first task in the scheduler, and they're going to tell it to lay it out in the path that you have assigned. So what will happen is, because we have these lag hours here, 10 is going to start on Monday, 20 is going to start on Wednesday, and 30 is going to start on Friday. And that happens a lot because, maybe we don't have the circuit available. We can only do it on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for some reason. Maybe the crew's doing something else on Tuesday and Thursday, and it's okay to leave whatever this is down while you skip Tuesday and go to Wednesday. So that's what the lag does. The lag tells the system how far to move from task to task. Does that make sense? And I know Mike typically has work orders, that might be 5 days, but there would not be any lag between them. They would be doing like Monday through Friday. They would all just be a finish to start.
Right. But there are some days, because we have repair days usually on Tuesday. So there are days that Tuesday we're wrapped up, but we're working on it Monday and then start back on it on Wednesday. So
right.
Yeah, that's nice to know. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I want each of you to find a work order that's in your crew work group preferably, or find a work order that is in a plan. This time you're going to go and I am going to search for a job plan that belongs to the crew work group that I'm working on. You may know that there's a job plan in some other crew work group and you could take it, but you would have to change the information on it. So I want a job plan that is active. And I don't even remember what this work order was for. I'm just going to pull something. I'm going to use this one. So I'm going to take a look at this, and it tells me I've got an 8-hour duration. Crew 4C is going to do it. And see, this is the one. This is the bad one I pulled up earlier. I don't want this one. I want something that looks better. Alright, so we've got 8 and 8. The craft code matches the crew work group. So I'm going to select this one. I'm going to return with value to the work order. So now that job plan 11903 is now on the plans tab. So that is what I want each of you to do. I want you to go find a work order. Then I want you to go to the job plans right here, go to job plans, and then find a job plan and return it to a work order, and then save it. Alright, so it is 10:35, so I'm going to give you 10 minutes or so to do that. Yeah, 10 minutes.
22713.
Man, you dug up an old one. Alright, so we have 365, 377. Oh, this one has a PM on it too. Well, this is interesting. So, notice your task number 1 has no duration on it. It has hours down here under the labor for this craft, but there's no hours on this. So you would need to make sure this has the same as this down here. Let's make sure our crew work groups match. COU01, and we've got ME01. We got scaffolding. Okay, so do your scaffold builders have a crew work group? Do you know?
So I do not know that.
Okay, because this crew work group might be wrong. At Four Corners, they actually have a crew work group because they're an independent contractor. Alright, so heavy equipment. Do the heavy equipment operators have a different crew work group?
The water's back there.
I don't know that either.
Okay. Alright, so this job plan is a little lacking. For example, we don't know how to work this job. There's no predecessors on it. So we don't know how this is supposed to happen. So, for example, this first task is to remove, recertify, and reinstall. But wouldn't you build the scaffolding first? And then you would have remove and recertify. You would need the heavy equipment to go along with that, and then you would remove the scaffolding. So this is not the best job plan in the world because I don't feel like it's laid out very well. Now the stuff matches. I mean, we've got, you know, the correct crew work groups here, I think. This is a craft code for the scaffolding builder, so that's obviously excellent. And we've got the scaffolding builders here. I think the layout might be wrong. For example, this would probably be, I would think task 10 would probably be first.
Okay.
So we might do, I have to do this. So on the work order itself, then you would say you want task 1 to actually follow task 10. And I'm not sure. I know at Four Corners typically the scaffolding gets built on the day before, and then the job starts the next day. So the scaffolding was I didn't look to see. The scaffolding was how many hours? It was 4 hours. So if we do the scaffolding first and then we do task 10, we would need to put 4 hours here so that this task 10, task 1 would start the next morning. So the scaffolding takes 4 hours, say on Monday, for example. Then you've got 4 more hours left of the 8 hours. So you need 4 to get to the next day. So it would have 4 hours lag. I try to lay my stuff out in the order that I want them to happen. This one's not quite laid out that way, but again, this is a job plan you found, not a job plan you built. So I'm not going to try to do the whole thing. I just wanted you to see that when you get a job plan like this, sometimes you have to still do a little bit of work because it's not complete. So I'm not going to route that one because we need a little bit of work. All right, does anybody else have one? I'm going to create a job plan, and you guys are all going to create one yourself. And after lunch, we're going to talk about PMs. So the job plan that you create, make sure you write your number down because you're going to use it to create a PM. All right, so I'm just going to say this is test for job plan creation. All right, and you please make sure you fill in your organization. I think at some point this might actually disappear, but because we're all one org now. But I am in FOSS US, which is Mosaic Fertilizer LLC. So make sure you fill that in. It will not let you do it later. So there are quite a few fields you need to fill in here. I'm going to put a crew work group on it. I'm going to use my Four Corners 4C group. I'm going to say the duration of my plan is going to be, let's see, I'm going to make this 20 hours. And you will see why once I make this plan. All right, so it's just like you're doing what you're doing on the plans tab of a work order. So this is going to be Monday, and it is going to be 4 hours. And I'm doing it this way to be able to show you something else. And remember, this will not automatically fill in the crew work group. Even though you have filled it in at the top, it does not fill it in here under this crew work group. So you have to fill that in. All right, so I'm going to click new row. I'm going to say this one is Tuesday. I also want it to be 4 hours. Fill in my crew work group because it's not going to do that for me. Task 30 is going to be Wednesday. And I'm just doing this as simple as I can, guys. Believe me, yours would be much more correct than what I'm doing here. I'm just doing it just to fill in the blanks right now. Task 40 would be Thursday. It is also 4 hours. And one more. This will be Friday. Whoa.
From the waist,
You're just adding a row. Just adding a new row, just like you would if you were on the work order. So I need to have labor to match those. So my task 10 is MFC, ME4C. And again, make sure you're picking the craft that actually matches what you're doing. It will fill the hours in from the top. As long as you have your durations at the top, it's going to fill this in for you. You can also change the quantity. You know, one man might not be enough. You might need 4 guys to do this. Don't hesitate to ask questions if you have them. And your job plan can be as simple or as complicated as you want. You can put materials on it. You could can be a little bit more challenging to put on a job plan because the services could change. For example, maybe whoever the vendor is that's providing that service, you know, maybe their hours change, or you know, there could be some change. So it's a little tricky when you put service on a job plan. Just a thought. All right, so I have 5 labors to match my 5 tasks. Now I'm going to save that. What do I need to do next? Somebody tell me.
Write the number down.
Well, that too, yes, that too. But, and by the way, you can also, whenever you're doing it, I can't now because I've saved it, you should be able to put a number here if you want, if you choose, something that you'll be able to remember. You cannot do it after you've saved it, though. I've already saved. All right, so Monday would not have a predecessor because Monday comes first. So Tuesday needs to have a predecessor. I want Tuesday to follow Monday, and it's the finish to start. When Monday finishes, Tuesday starts. However, Monday is only 4 hours. So that means I need 4 hours of lag time to be able to get to the next day. I'm just filling up 8 hours. So then I want Wednesday, which is task 30. Where's my predecessor at? Oh. So I want 30 to follow 20. And again, because it's 4 hours and it's finished to start, I need 4 hours lag time so that it will get to Wednesday. Just filling up an 8-hour day. Thursday is task 40. I need it to follow task 30. Again, it's the finish to start, and I've got 4 hours lag. All my tasks are only 4 hours. And one more. Let's do Friday. And Friday would be following Thursday, of course. And again, 4 hours lag to get to the next day. All right, so now I have, it won't show you all 5 at one time in here for some reason in the job plans. So you can see I got all my predecessors, I've got my relationships, and I have my lag hours. So this, I've done everything that I want on this job plan. I've already saved it. So now I can change the status of my job plan. You cannot use a job plan in draft status. So now I'm going to change it to active. and I'll be able to use this job plan. So see, now I have number 142837, which after lunch, I'm going to use that to create a PM. So now, anybody have any questions about that? It's just like doing the work order, only now you're putting it on the job plan that you'll attach to a work order. And you see my duration is 20 because I have 5 4-hour tasks. This include tasks and schedule. Always leave that check there. If you take that check off, they won't show up on a schedule because you're saying, I don't really want to see it. I don't really want this to be executed. So always leave this check mark here. Any questions? I know I went through it kind of fast. It's just like planning a work order, only now you're preparing it so you can use it over and over again. Any questions? Okay, so for the next 15 minutes till about 11:40, you guys are going to create a job plan in the plans module. Remember how we got here? Just go to planning, job plans. You're going to click on the new icon up here and you're going to create a job plan. Just remember to fill in all your fields. Even though it's not required, make sure you put your crew work group. Now, something else, let me just go to the list view. No, I'm not going to save those changes. All right, say for example, this one that I just created. I did a very basic job plan, but remember the work orders that we did earlier that had a mechanic, a crane operator, and an electrician, or we had scaffold builders, a mechanic, a crane operator, and an electrician. You can make that same kind of work of job plan in here. It doesn't have to be, all one crew work group. It could be multiple crew work groups. Just make sure they match, just like you would if you were doing a work order, because that's what this job plan is going to be. This job plan is going to be a work order. So just think about the job, that you would do. Now we're going to use your job plan to create a PM. It's not necessarily going to be something that will be a PM, but don't worry about that. We're in the test database and we're not going to hurt anything. So go ahead and create a job plan. You've got till 11. We look at it because we're going to use them after lunch.
142839.